everyone. Welcome to day 2 SharePoint conference. How's day 1 so far? Good? All right. So, just to clarify, I just want to set things straight here. I'm not that guy. I've been mistaken for that guy, but I'm a better guy. Welcome to this session. We're going to talk about how you lead the enterprise social revolution, but more importantly, I'm going to give you 5 practical steps on how you drive culture change. None of the fluff, none of the collaboration kumbaya, hardcore, practical, you walk away, you can do it kind of stuff. Y'all want that? It's not loud enough. Y'all want that? Okay, so my name is Dux Raymond Sy, S-Y, and that's my real name. Feel free to call me Dux. As you can imagine, I have a hard time growing with that name. Got my ducks in a row now. I'm a managing partner of Innovative E. Very passionate about this technology. I started my career as an assembler programmer. For those that don't know what that is, you weren't born yet. But in the last few years, I guess 12 years, working with this awesome technology called SharePoint, but my true passion in life is how can you make SharePoint deliver business value? And a key consideration to make that happen is this idea of change. How many of you in your organizations, I'm sure, have SharePoint already? Anybody don't have SharePoint? Okay. So how many of you in your organizations that SharePoint is nothing more than a glorified network share? Raise your hand. And you are not alone. 80% of global SharePoint deployments in large enterprises is nothing but a glorified network share. How many of you in your organizations having users, when they look at SharePoint, they would say, SharePoint sucks? I have a homework for you. When you go back to work come Monday, and if that user comes to you and say, SharePoint sucks, you look at them straight in the eye, straight up, and say, SharePoint doesn't suck, you suck. It's a freaking tool. And we're going to make it work. So what we're going to do in this hour, I'm going to talk about what's going on in the enterprise today. And more importantly, I'm going to talk about why, regardless we want it or not, we like it or not, social is here. And I want to equip you to be ready. And readiness means a lot of different things. So I'm going to equip you with tools, techniques, and strategies. But talking about this idea of a social revolution, a lot of us aren't ready. And the problem is, it's already here. How many of us work in the IT organization in our companies? Okay? So, think about this. We are in the day and age where the consumerization of IT is prevalent. And what I mean by that, things like bring your own devices. Check out my new iPhone 5. Look at how cool my Kindle Fire is. And the executives are worse. Everybody wants an iPad. Right? And then if the marketing team can't get you to do what they want, they go out, swipe their credit card. Ooh, Google Apps, free. Ooh, Basecamp, $2 a month. And then once they can't take that data and hook it up to your enterprise system, whose fault is it? IT. It's here. The other sign of the social revolution being here is we are in the day and age where things are happening so fast. Decisions need to be made quickly. Are we ready for that? We want it or not, it's here. And we are in a day and age, because of this revolution, because of the economic climate, we got to do more with less. No mucho dinero. I had a CIO talk to me 2 years ago. It's during the bad economic times. He's CIO of a law firm. He called me up. He said, hey, Dux, I saw you in one of the executive briefings, because I do a lot of these executive briefings in D.C. We're out of D.C. in Atlanta. And you said SharePoint can help deliver business value, and here's my problem. Our budget has been cut 30% this fiscal. But the business expects IT to deliver the same set of services and more. Are you in that boat? Now show me how SharePoint can deliver business value. That's the kind of conversations you want to get into, and I'll talk more about that. The fourth sign that the revolution is here. We are in the day and age because of technology, because of the speed of business, because of not having a lot of money. Collaboration is critical. You guys want to guess what the number one collaboration tool today in 2012 is? This is a formal survey. What's the number one tool? Email. We are in a day and age where everybody bought a Surface. We have GPS in our car so it won't get lost. We have TiVo at home so we have to record Dancing with the Stars. And we use a 1973 frickin' technology to collaborate. Shame on us. When we talk about social, there's a misunderstanding around social. I want to clarify that before I talk about how you drive change. You see, the problem is the misunderstanding, the wrong idea of social. People think of social as, Facebook. I'm not going to tell people what I ate today. We're thinking consumer, because that's what we do. We put up our pictures of cute kittens in Facebook. We don't want our employees to waste their time doing that, and they shouldn't. By definition, just to set things straight, what's enterprise social? Can you read it with me? 1, 2, 3. Enterprise social, read it with me, is an important method for enhancing communication, coordination, and collaboration for business purposes. Nothing in there says enterprise social is a wiki. Nothing in there says enterprise social is a news feed. Nothing in there says enterprise social is liking and following and tagging. Nothing. We get too caught up on these freaking tools. That's why we suck. Now, because of that, because of being caught up in tools, we got to have this tool and that tool. I remember I was working with last December, 80,000 people organization. I was working with their IT group, providing some advisory, and they're going to roll out SharePoint 2010, the whole enterprise, and they said, hey, Dux, what do you think? We're going to build these site templates. Each template would have a wiki, survey, libraries. I go, why? Dead silence, just like this. That made me insecure, because being an immigrant, I feel like my English is not good enough. So I asked it again. I said, ¿Por qué? I go, what are you talking about? I go, okay, so why do you think you need wikis, blogs, all this stuff? Isn't that Enterprise 2.0? The business says they want a wiki. For what? ¿Por qué? If you cannot answer that fundamental question, ¿Por qué? Warum? 为什么? Why? I know I missed out Finnish, but I can't speak Finnish, sorry. You don't move forward. And that's why we have this situation today. I have 2 lovely children. Johan is 7. Danik is 2. I see a difference between boys and girls. My son, whenever he has a new toy or puzzle, he just cracks the box open, plays with it, and he gets stuck and he cries. He gets frustrated. Well, that's what we're doing, right? The user goes, I want a wiki. I want a blog. I want Yammer. Here. IT goes, here. They're excited for a week, and then what? I'm not sure what to do with this. I'm so busy, I don't have time to play with this. Y'all with me? Pardon my southern accent. I'm from the deep south, Southeast Asia. So, the critical thing is, for example, what do you think these numbers mean? Anybody? Phone number? No. That's a wrong number. What do you think this number means? What's that? Wrong sequence, account number, my bank account, how much I have? Not really. What's that? What? Population. Now, are they wrong or are they right? I don't know. What does that mean? Oh, Yammer. Oh, newsfeed. Likes, tags, trending, hashtag. I can keep up with all these. But if it doesn't mean the same thing to the same group of people, it's a freaking tool. So the reason why social is not as effective today in a lot of organizations, number one, is people aren't on the same page. Why do we want social? You don't do social for the sake of social, right? And then second, lack of executive support. This is important. We'll talk about that. You see, social is very powerful. It drives open communication. It cements personal connections for a specific purpose. Unless you don't have a purpose, don't do it. Facebook is a different story. You cannot compare Facebook to enterprise social. Another challenge, which is huge. What's in it for me? What's in it for me, Sally in accounting, who's been working here for 30 years? And all I want to use is Excel. None of the SharePoint stuff. I love my Excel. You find accounting people, that's all they want to use? Accounting people only use two things: email and Excel. That's it. So what does that mean to Sally? We have to shift our thinking around social as a tool versus social as a means to deliver business value. Big difference. So, to drive that change, to make people want it, love it, adopt it, this is a great quote. There's critical steps that we have to follow. The great philosopher Niccolo Machiavelli, he says, there's nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, and more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in the introduction of new order of things. Change is hard. 3 years ago, I got a call from a Army depot. He said, Dux, we roll out SharePoint 2007 to 3,000 people. It's just been sitting there for 3 months. Can you come to the organization and figure out what we did wrong? All right. So I came up. I said, what's your business case for this? Oh, the general went to some conference and the other general had it. He came back and says, I want SharePoint now. Okay. $1.7 million later, they hooked it up to a bunch of stuff, customized it. It's sitting there. So what I did is I walked around the depot and went to this, like a garage, because they're fixing tanks from Middle East. And I saw this engineer is fixing a tank. I go, excuse me, sir, can I talk to you for a second? He goes, sure. He said, I understand you roll out this system, and specifically for you, instead of writing down the parts you use for the equipment you fixed and faxing it back to the warehouse, I understand that they want you to use this new system, which is built in SharePoint, so you can enter what you used and what parts you need, all that good stuff. Everybody with me? He goes, Sonny, he called me Sonny. Sonny, I'm going to show you something. So we walked, he fired up his browser, Internet Explorer. It's MOS 2007 in its full glory. With every bells and whistles, every clicks you can click on, it's there. I don't have time for this, he said. Our boys are out there risking their lives. Every minute counts that these equipment go back. I'm going to use my paper and pen. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Tell upper management I don't need this crap. I'm helping save lives. Change is hard. But there's steps to drive these changes. So I'm going to show you practical steps on how you do this. Step 1. You got to gain executive engagement. And it's not executive buy-in, it's not executive awareness, it's engagement. Engagement means commitment. It's not a one-time thing. You see, it's critical that the C-suite understand the value enterprise social brings to the organization. So let me go back to the story of the CIO. So he said, Dux, our budget has been cut 30%. Show me how SharePoint can bring value. I go, all right. So you're a law firm. How big are you? He said, we're about 800 people across U.S. and Europe. Okay, so I suspect lawyers, they love to do meetings. He goes, yep. So I suspect when they do meetings, they send an invite, put a bunch of attachments in that invite, and they send it. So if there's 10 people invited, 100 documents just went out. He goes, yep. Okay, here's what I want you to do. Can you do an audit of how big people's file shares or inboxes are, PSD files, whatever? He goes, okay. So on the average, it came back as 2.5 gig. Okay? And being a law firm, compliance, all that stuff, you know that. And I said, so how much does that cost? He said, it's not much, hard drive is cheap. No. How much does that cost? Hard drive is one, but backing it up, the person doing it, if you get audited, how do you pull the backup? How much does that cost? So we crunched some numbers. I said, all right, so based on that number, I'm going to show you how you can save 30% or more from that. So what we're going to do, at least for this pilot, we're going to show people a new way of doing meetings. Very simple. Instead of sending an invite with a bunch of attachments, we're going to use this feature out of the box in Windows SharePoint services, which they already have, called Meeting Workspaces. Y'all with me? And what we're going to do, we're going to train people to say, look, when you send an invite, instead of attachment, click here, it'll create a website for your meeting. You put all your artifacts there so people just go there. And even better, after the meeting, you can track action items, all the goodness of SharePoint, good stuff. 1 hour training. We show the value, and also part of that exercise is, and by the way, 2 months after we put this in, we're going to cut down your email inboxes to about 500 megs. There's some people kicking and screaming, but it's all good. So that whole exercise took about 2 months. On the 6th month, he calls me up. He says, Docs, it worked. You see, not only did we save money from storage and all that, people are happier because they can find things easier. It's all centralized. And we already had Windows SharePoint services just sitting there. Right? But here's the cool part, Ducks. One thing we did not talk about, and I didn't even think about, is we have 3 T1 lines coming in to corporate. You see, people email stuff all the time, and that's why we need big bandwidth. Imagine if you send 10 documents to 10 people, you just send 100 documents. And since files are not being sent anymore for these meetings, we got rid of the other T1. Business value. Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. And that approach was very low risk. Right? Meeting workspaces. 2-month exercise. We're not throwing everything. CIO's happy. Business is happy. And then we just grew from there. When we talk about delivering business value, financial gain is one, but there's a lot of other reasons. What about expediting innovation? We talk about how fast business is moving today. iPhone 5 just came out, Windows Phone 8 came out. iPhone 6 will come out soon. I heard iPad Mini 2 is coming out. We got to drive innovation. And if we rely on email, ain't going to happen. Is that the business value you want? Another great story is the U.S. State Department. The U.S. State Department is all in. They're using SharePoint. So one of the groups there is called State Department Security. So what their job is to protect all diplomats coming in from other countries and to protect all U.S. diplomats in other countries. And part of their exercise is every day before, each embassy would email an Excel sheet showing security threat report. Okay? Now, as you can imagine, you got hundreds and hundreds of these Excel spreadsheets going into headquarters. It takes time to consolidate these and come up with a report to look at trends of security threats. Y'all follow me? And because they can't get the information real time, sometimes people die. It's too late. They said, we got to fix this. So they called up IT. IT built this fancy tool. Took 6 months. They rolled it out. It worked for 2 months, and it broke. And IT had to fix it again. And in that period of time, lives were lost. So one of the program directors says, there's got to be a way to make this work. They have SharePoint. So I'm going to do a pilot with 10 embassies, I think 10, and I'm going to create a site, create custom lists for each embassy to say security threat report, security. Everybody with me? And their job is every day to fill in security threat report. He rolled up all the data through a content query web part and attached it to a little indicator to understand what the threat levels are. The pilot took 3 months. They averted one security threat in South America. Gives me goosebumps when I tell that story. We worry about documents. The guy's worrying about lives, losing lives, right? So what's the business value? So you got to educate these high-level folks and not just say, ooh, look at SharePoint. It has Yammer, it has Newsfeed. ¿Por qué? Step 2. Once you get the executive, the C-suite engaged, now you got to work with key business stakeholders. You have to develop relevant use cases. And what I mean by that, let's stop from showcasing how fancy SharePoint is. That's what we do. What kind of car is this? Ferrari, right? How much is that? A lot. That's what we paid for SharePoint. Now, if we use it correctly, it's fine. It's actually a cheap car for the experience you get. But the problem is, here's SharePoint, here's Yammer, and the business would go, ooh, nice car for 10 minutes, and then they realize, I just learned how to ride a bike yesterday. I don't have time to learn this. I'll just park it in the garage. I'll bike to work, email, Excel. Right? Stop pushing how great SharePoint, how great social, all that. Talk about solutions. And the way you talk about it is you got to get everybody on the same page. And when I say everybody, everybody in the same group. What if I told you these numbers are arranged in alphabetical order? 8, 5, 4, 9, 1, 7, 6, 3, 2, 0. So when you flash enterprise social, that doesn't mean jack squat. You got to get everybody on the same page. Sally in accounting, enterprise social, help her enhance communication, better collaboration, is different than the project managers, than the HR people. You got to make things simple, but the act of making it simple is not simple. This is a lovely picture. It's somewhere up in the upper northwest. Apparently, there's this thing called rock gardens. This looks all natural and perfect. But the company that put this together took them 8 months to make it look like this. Moving rocks around. But we got to do that. So how, ducks? How do we make things simple and make our users love it? The first step, where we are today, is you got to address their pain points and identify quick wins. Don't throw all this stuff at them right away. For example, a quick win, at least for what we do, so in my organization, we're a SharePoint partner, and we work with organizations to take advantage of SharePoint, deliver business value specifically on project management, but we do a lot of adoption, sustainable adoption programs. One of our potential customers I'm going to work with has 100,000 people. We've rolled out this adoption program. But the first step is always starting from what they're comfortable with and what they're familiar with. To some of us, that's not sexy, ducks. Social has nothing to do with Office. Oh, yeah. Here's an example. So, here's an example I want to show you. So let's go back to my story about Sally. So this was 2 years ago. We rolled out, there was a company we worked with in the Southeast, and mid-sized organization. At any given point in time, they have 100 or so projects that they're running. And prior to using SharePoint, they use email, Excel, network share. You know how that works. So we helped them. They already had SharePoint. We pretty much tailored SharePoint work with them so that they can use SharePoint for project management. And by the way, there's a good book for that called SharePoint for Project Management. Make sure you get that book. In fact, I wrote that book for those not familiar. Tell you what, for being here, everybody gets a copy of the ebook, okay? So I'll tell you. My son just lost 80% royalty for each copy, but has to figure out college on his own now. Okay. So what we did is we rolled it out, we trained him, all that good stuff. One of the things we found is at the end of every month, project managers would have to send an Excel expenses sheet to Sally in accounting. So imagine end of every month, Sally in accounting would have 100 sheets of Excel files of expenses coming through via email that she has to put together and consolidate and report on how much all these projects are spending every month. Does that sound familiar? So I walked up to her desk. I said, Sally, how much time are you spending doing this every month? She goes, I spend 7 hours every month for the last 8 years putting this stuff together. How do you like that? She goes, it's okay. It's my job. I go, what if I tell you I can help you cut that down time in half? Instead of 7 hours, maybe 3 or 4 hours. Would you like that? She goes, of course, but as long as I don't have to learn anything new because I'm retiring in 2 years. If I could do it in Excel, I'm all for it. Good news, Sally, because what I'm going to show you is in Excel. So here's, by the way, friends, what I'm going to show you, this functionality has been there since 2003, okay, Excel and SharePoint. So I said, Sally, here's what we're going to do. Instead of project managers emailing you Excel files every month, what we're going to do is we're going to tell project managers, since they have a SharePoint site for each project, they're just going to put it in a list. And once they enter it there, automatically it'll show up in your Excel sheet on your desktop. You don't have to go anywhere. Okay? So here's how we're going to do it, Sally. What we're going to cut down is we're going to cut down them emailing you. Okay? So, Sally, let's pre-populate some data here. So let's say item, cost. So let's say they bought some chairs for the project. $500. They bought some computers. I'm just going to put little data. All right. Let's see, $1,000. Okay. And I'm going to make this column currency. Okay. And I will convert this to what's called an Excel table. Now, this is all out of the box since 2003. Now, once I converted this, check this out. Publish and allow sync. Okay? So what I'm going to do now is take this data and not only publish it to this project site, I'll connect it so it'll synchronize. So instead of typing it, let me just copy the URL, and let's put in expenses, monthly expenses, whatever you want to call it. So let me hit publish. By the way, do you guys know about this? Who doesn't know about this since 2003? Okay, good. Because I don't want to demo something you already know. So now as I hit publish, again, keep in mind, these will be a list of expenses for the Las Vegas project. What we have now is Sally sitting in corporate in the comfort of her Excel file, having access to the data, and on the other end of the spectrum, right, project managers or project teams working on that information has access to it. Well, even better, we talk about what's in it for me. So let's say, yes, I'm using a Mac. Get over it. And that's the power of the platform. It's on my terms, right? I'm one of those guys, BYOD. You remember that BYOD diagram? I'm notorious for that. So I come in here, let's say I'm using my tablet or my Mac. One of the things I love in 2013 is they finally was able to take the data sheet view and make it work. So I'm the project manager, and I go, you know what, we bought a car for the project, $50,000. You know, we bought some software, whatever, $1,000. And in fact, as a project manager, what I want to do too is I want to follow this list. So if Sally updates it or somebody updates it or follow this site, I'll be keeping track of it. Y'all with me? So as soon as I enter that information, Sally, sitting in corporate in the accounting department, using her PC on Windows 95 with Excel 2003, work in DC. I work with the government. I still work with a bunch of people having Windows 95. Check this out. Sally can say, hey, synchronize, bada bing, bada boom, voila. The data that the project manager entered on his Mac in Vegas shows in Excel. That's what I call power to the people. That's what I call enterprise social. Can anybody tweet this? Excel is enterprise social. Now, we're not done. So as Sally looks at this, Sally goes, I'm looking at the receipts. You didn't buy a car, you bought carpet. Okay? And it wasn't $50,000, it was $5,000 for that project. And now that I've updated, when I say I, Sally can push the data back to that project site. And let's go to that project site. Look at that, just want to make sure. And I hit refresh, carpet, $5,000. And then I showed Sally, I said, Sally, here's what you can do then next. So now you learn how to do that. Go ahead and create a bunch of sheets, tie each sheet to the 100 projects, Las Vegas, sheet 1. Whatever, California, sheet 2. So she did that. I kind of stepped her through that. And then she created like a summary sheet. You know how in Excel you can have a summary sheet? You can tie into all the data from all the other sheets. Y'all follow me? So she put pivot tables and charts and what have you. 2 months later, she calls me up. She goes, Dux, thank you. I really thank you. People don't have to email me stuff. I don't have to deal with checking my email inbox. Did he send that Excel file yet? Putting it on my desktop, putting all that together, bringing it to Excel file, and figuring out what happened. Instead of spending 7 hours, I spent 4 hours. And I think I could do better because I still have to check the data and compare the receipts, all that good stuff. Use cases. Never in my conversation with Sally as I got started, oh, Sally, do you know about this thing called Excel synchronization with SharePoint list? La, 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 la. Sally, what do you do? I mean, how do you? The problem with us, especially in IT, we try to figure out, we got to hook SharePoint to CRM and SAP and run DMC. Your biggest and quickest win is at the office level. I could go on and on till the break of dawn. Outlook is brilliant. I don't know about you, but you could do a lot of things with Outlook and SharePoint out of the box. A lot of things with Excel, with Word. I have a full-blown white paper and 20 videos I produced that I'll give you too on these little use cases. Right? Now, I asked Sally, I go, what do you do now that you saved 3 hours pretty much? Oh, fancy you asked that, Dux. I learned how to use Facebook. That's a different conversation. Because, yeah, she saved time, but the question is, what is she doing with that time saved? On a serious note, you have to think about that and talk about that. If it means Sally not doing overtime because she's spending, at the end of the month, she's doing overtime, getting all these Excel files. She's not doing 3-hour overtime anymore. That's value right there, both for her and for the company. Educate and engage the business to develop these use cases. Now, step 3. Step 1, you engage executives. Step 2, you develop relevant business use cases. Step 3, you have to establish a social roadmap. By the way, just to make sure, how's everybody doing? How's the session so far? Good stuff? All right. What do we mean by establishing a social roadmap? You see, when we talk about enterprise social, it's a journey. And I hate to say this, there's really no specific destination, but there's a common journey. The journey, ideally, should take you to 3 key things. Number 1, as you get started with your social journey, you should have a platform, technology in place that people can connect with. SharePoint is a brilliant platform. Sally, because of SharePoint, can still use Excel to work with other people. And other people may be using mobile or browser or what have you. Once they get through that phase, The second phase of the journey is the idea of empowering people. Again, the platform was there. Sally used Excel. She was empowered to help herself. Because after that, what I didn't tell you, she figured out other stuff. She said, hey, Docs, on this summary sheet, can I make this show up on the browser? Because executives want to see real-time data on how much we're spending on their mobile device while they're traveling. Can I do that? I go, Sally, let me tell you this. When you ask me questions again of this stuff, don't ask me if you can do that. Ask me, how do you do it, grasshopper? I go, of course. So I showed her this concept of Excel services. Straightforward. Dump the Excel file on the document library, your tables and chart, and in 2013 it's even better. You got Power View going on. So she's empowered. And then the third phase of your social journey is the idea now that once people are connected, they're empowered, they can engage with each other. You, the facilitator, get out of the way. I love the Nationwide commercial. Anybody staying in Mandalay Bay Hotel, that SharePoint TV? Anybody from Nationwide? No? Oh, I love your story. Spot, right? It's like Yammer's our water cooler because now we just step aside. They help each other. They engage. Our help desk tickets went down. Business value. But you cannot bypass any of these, unfortunately. You cannot say, here's social, go engage. Not. It takes time. And it takes intention. Nothing happens by accident. Nothing happens overnight. So if you're from the organization that says, oh, the boss wants us to put SharePoint. Okay, hey, Joe, you're not using your box, right? Let's fire up a virtual machine, play with SharePoint. IT will pilot it. And then Joe from IT, ooh, this is cool. Let me email my buddy Mark, hey, check this out. We got SharePoint. Ooh, sales, check this out. We got SharePoint. 2 weeks later, a pilot running on a VM on his machine suddenly become production intranet. I'm talking about you. 3 weeks later, 60,000 sites. 4 weeks later, permissions up the wazoo. 5 weeks later, SharePoint sucks. No, you suck. It has to be intentional. And you cannot bypass any of these if you want to deliver success. So how do you do your roadmap? Okay? You have to prioritize. I was speaking with a gentleman earlier from Nokia. And he said, Docs, I can see how you do this in a pilot group, in a small group, but how do you do it across 50,000, 80,000, 100,000 people organization scattered around the world? And we can't do it all as IT. How do you go through this journey and establish this roadmap? You have to prioritize. I'm going to show you something here. So remember earlier I said in step 2 you have to deliver relevant use cases. What's going to happen there, if you get people excited, everybody wants everything like right now. Oh, you're going to help Sally? Well, help me too. I'm in HR. Help sales. Help. But how do you prioritize? I'm going to show you. And again, this is something we use in my organization. I'll give this to you too. Somebody has to take down all the stuff I'm promising you. Now, on a serious note, when you walk out, there's a desk in the back. Some of you got cards or even your business cards. Just leave it back there so I'll make sure all the stuff I'm showing, all the resources I mentioned, I'll give it to you, okay? All right, so here's a prioritization tool that we use in my company when we help large organizations deliver sustainable adoption. In this example, we work with a government agency, and similar story. They already had SharePoint. IT put it in place. It's a big file share. They want to get business value. So one of the initial exercises we do with large enterprises is this idea of eduneering. It's educating the business about the platform and collaboratively engineering solutions with them. Eduneering. I wanted to use the word imagineering, but some small company called Disney already owns it, so I can't. Now, so what's the idea here? So I spend time with the different business groups as I build these use cases. So I sit down with operations, HR, And I start describing or start figuring out what their pain points are. So for example, let me give you a scenario and I'll come back to this. So let's say, what's your name, sir? So Jason, let's say Jason is the head of HR, right? Hey, Jason, do you guys have an onboarding process? Yeah. Of course, right? And he explains how does it work? He goes, oh, it goes like this. So he goes, okay, so sounds like you got it all together. So does it ever occur in your company, Jason, that a new employee got hired, he showed up at work, but for some reason, Office wasn't provisioned, login wasn't provisioned, he just hanged out the hallway for a week? Does that happen? Probably. Does that happen? That doesn't make sense. You have a process, but people are hanging out the hallway for a week. How much does that cost? And then the dirty laundry comes out. Why does that happen, Jason? And Jason goes, well, it's IT's fault. Because the way we do it is so manual. You know, if a manager wants a new employee, they go to the network share, 14 folders deep, fill up a form, email it to us. We do our job, and we email IT to create all these accounts. If somebody drops the ball, employee hangs out the hallway. True story. There's a government, not government, but an organization supporting government in D.C. had 20 people hanging out the hallway for 3 months. So I said, Jason, what if we can streamline, automate this, and minimize maybe just half of those people hanging out the hallway? Would that be valuable? He goes, of course, right? But IT won't do it because they're too busy. No. I said, what if you do it? Bless your heart, Docs. You think too highly of me. I'm from HR. I'm not IT. I can't build an automated system. By the way, for those that are not from the U.S., when you hear the words bless your heart, it's not a good thing. I moved here to the States in '96. I lived in Atlanta, Georgia. And a little old lady would come up to me, bless his heart, that kid's ugly. It's an excuse to be mean. Right? Anybody from the South? That's true, right? No? All right, your excuse. So I go back to Jason. I said, Jason, what if you can help yourself? I said, what are you talking about? And then the magic happens. I fire up my SharePoint environment. I build a site. I create a custom form, either in a list or info path, pop in some workflow, new employee request form. 10, 15 minutes, I have a prototype to say, hey, Jason, what if it happens this way? It's traceable, trackable. Wow. At that point in time, he gets it. I thought SharePoint was just a file share. It's not. It can help me with my business. The angels start singing, ha. So that's what engineering is. So once we get to that conversation, what I do is I start talking with these groups, and you can do this in an hour or two. It doesn't take long. And start going through their day-to-day business activities that you know SharePoint can bring value. As they describe certain processes to you, right, I list on the top of my head what feature out of the box in SharePoint that can help that. Right? Out of the box. In case you didn't get the memo, out of the box first. If you can't do it, third party second. Custom development last resort. So if a so-called SharePoint expert walks up to you and say, yeah, I can develop that in Visual Studio. That's the first thing that comes out of their mouth. Poser alert. Now, so I do that, right? So they go, oh, Docs, we have this SOP creation process. It's an Excel file in the network share. You know, we work on it. So as they're describing the process, I'm listing high-level capabilities, news feeds, what have you. And then as they're done, I go, okay, operations, if there's one thing I can help you with right now, what would that be? He said, Docs, you know, if we can improve this accident report review and automate it and track it, that's huge. That's number one. Number two is this. Number three is that. So as we go through all this stuff, then I want to measure the value of a specific feature in SharePoint. SharePoint has thousands and thousands of features. You have to tie it, what does this mean to the business? So I flip the view now where, okay, so you have HR, operations, and I list the features based on what they described, right? So everything HR said, they would need a list. Some document management capability, alerting mechanism, workflow, what have you. And then the priority here is straight from their mouth. Why are lists important? Because most of the things they want can be done in lists. That's why list is huge. Number 5. Next, I want to measure what's the size and effort to build these lists. What that number means, if we look here, you got to put some level of standardization. So the metric I put in there is based on my team's expertise. To build those lists for HR for this company, it's going to take a 3-person week effort, okay? But what's the impact to HR? High impact. If it means it's going to cut down people hanging out the hallway, that's huge. It's a 3. How reusable is this? Is it a one-time thing? Can we templatize it so HR can reuse it? Is it reusable throughout the enterprise? Can we build like a common template for HR, but everybody else in the company can use it? You measure that. And then in the end, you come up with some total business value of that specific feature. Y'all with me? And then we do the same for all the different groups. So what are we trying to get to here? We're trying to derive and figure out the business value of a specific or a group of features in SharePoint because we want to figure out what we want to do first and second and third. Prioritize. Now, we're not done. Once we have these numbers, so we know what are the most important things for HR and operations and whatnot, we have to be looking at what IT can do and cannot do. What's the impact to IT if IT would do such thing to put the list for HR? Well, that means, for example, that one means 1 FTE for a month or something. Yeah. What about support impact? That means 1 FTE for a month just to support that, tweak that, whatever. How about training, right? What's the total IT impact? And this is the pièce de résistance. You now have both views. What it means to the business, what it means to IT. And you bring the decision makers in the business and IT, use this a conversation piece. Y'all with me? This never happens. What happens is IT, I want social. Okay, here's SharePoint, here's Yammer, bless your heart. You see, what happens here, we're not going to get agreement. We're trying to figure out what we can do and cannot do realistically. So now, HR might say, hey, look, those lists and those libraries are very important. We need it. You see, it's a 9, but IT might say, we don't have budget for that because it's IT Impact 3, not this fiscal. But HR might say, no, you don't get it. It means people not hanging out the hallway. Okay, tell you what, HR. Why don't we go at this together and you pony up some? Because us as IT, we put the platform in place and you find value, pony up some. And that actually can happen. Part of our job as IT when we facilitate this conversation is make them pay for it. Because unless people pay for it, they won't find value. How many of you have signed up to free events? 80% of the time you don't show up to those free webinars. I know. Because I spam you with those stuff all the time. I track all that. But if I make you pay, you show up. Both parties have to be equally engaged. It's not fair that IT gets the blame all the time. We're in this together. Right? And then past the conversation, at least for this organization, the roadmap looked like phase 1, we're going to do this, phase 2, phase 3. And this was an 18-month initiative. And then we formalized it in a more formal document explaining what we're doing with a timeline, all that good stuff. Is this helpful? You want this? $5 a download. No, again, just drop your info and I'll give it to you. All right, just don't sell it, all right? Don't sell it. Once you do that, so step 1, get your executive engaged. Step 2, identify relevant use cases. Step 3, build a roadmap, prioritize these use cases, figure out what you're going to do. Step 4, you got to identify and groom champions. I got to fess up. My name is not Dux. It's actually Dux L. My father's Kal-El. My grandfather's Jor-El. I come from a long line of superheroes, but I failed him. You see, I thought I could do this SharePoint thing all by myself. By day, I'm a Windows admin. By night, I'm a SharePoint Superman. But I failed. My boss told me to roll out SharePoint in 3 months for 5,000 people. I go, yeah, sure. Not. You can't do it alone. IT can't do it alone. To drive change, to drive business value, everybody has to be involved. IT can take care of the platform, the technology, but who's going to deal with engaging with the business? Who's going to deal with what I just did earlier? Talking to the business, identifying pain points, prioritizing. In fact, I think that's a number one role every organization should have. Unfortunately, if you look for a SharePoint job today, there's only two kinds of jobs. Developer, administrator. Yes? No disrespect to Microsoft, but if you're an enterprise organization, that's not the first full-time hire you need for your SharePoint environment. Because a lot of your IT pros, your devs, and administrators can take care of the platform. What you need, your first full-time hire, is what I call your SharePoint analyst. This person can work not only with the business, but can know SharePoint enough to start thinking about solutions and engage with IT or potentially have themselves do it. Who's going to do that, right? Who's going to take care of this sustainable adoption exercise, which we'll talk about? And then what about support and maintenance? Not only from a technical standpoint, but care and feeding for the community that's taking advantage of this. So the key is you got to get your champions. And what we mean by these champions is I'm not advocating that you hire 10 more people. Tap in to your existing organizations. You want common people to achieve uncommon, extraordinary, powerful results. You know, Sally was my biggest champion. In the last 2 years of her career at that company, she was the lead SharePoint evangelist. Sally from accounting. And Joe from HR, he was able to automate the business process for onboarding people. He was a great champion. To build up these champions, you got to identify them and groom them. So how do you do that? I'll explain more in a while, but one of your key steps as you engage in this adoption change management process is you have to identify these people, and ideally these people should have high profile visibility in the company. HR has high profile visibility. Corporate communicators, anybody corporate communications team here? High profile, powerful team. Executive assistants, powerful. You might find this funny, but one of the top solutions that a lot of companies we work with, when they start getting this stuff, is a conference room scheduling system. Right? You know that pain. Oh, there's a shared calendar and Outlook for a conference room. Well, we can't figure out who used it, and you end up calling, hey, Sally, who's using that room? You got to identify these champions and groom them, and this is not a one-time thing. And I'll show you how you do that. Step 5. To drive change in this social revolution, you have to deliver sustainable adoption. I didn't say you have to deliver training. Training is a part of it. Sustainable adoption is a constant process. Hold on, ducks. You're trying hard up there. You're all sweating, and this is too much work. I'll just stick to my email. I'm a parent of 2 lovely children. So, my son, when he was born, and you may be questioning me why I did this, but listen out. So I'm fortunate. I grew up learning 5 different languages. That doesn't count C++, VB, C#. And I only realized how powerful that was in the later stages of my life. So I said, I want my son to have that as well. But it's hard because, I said, if there's one language I want my son to learn and be fluent with, is Chinese Mandarin. And my wife doesn't speak Chinese Mandarin. So I go, well, maybe I could just wait for him to turn 16 and take Chinese courses in high school or college. Would that make him an expert? So I committed, and not that I'm an expert, I flunked all my Chinese courses growing up, but I'm committed. I told my wife, I want to speak to our children only in Chinese Mandarin and only in Chinese Mandarin as much as I can. So the day he was born, and young children, I bought some DVDs, kids videos. I taught him Chinese Mandarin. And he's 7 today, I still talk to him Chinese Mandarin. I take him to Chinese school. Unfortunately, the homework is so hard when I help him, I teach him the wrong thing, but that's besides the point. It's funny because when he was 2, we were out, and obviously we're outside, he's speaking English. And then he called me speaking, oh, you speak English? I go, no, I learned it from you, so that's why you got to learn more Chinese to explain stuff to me so I can learn to speak English. But now he knows. So after that, one time his friends were at home, they were speaking English, and then he turned around and said, oh, this is what I said, Dad, in Chinese. That's cool. But it has to be sustainable. You have to be constantly doing it. And it's not easy. It's hard for me. Now here's another tip. You may not agree. So I was putting him to bed when he was 4 months old. You sing lullabies, twinkle, twinkle. And I realized these lyrics are dumb. I'm not making good use of this lullaby because he remembers that stuff, right? So I changed up the lyrics. I sang the multiplication table to him in Chinese. And he's 7. He knows the 7 table already. He'll just sing it. I'll say, what's 7 times 6? He says 7, but he gets it. So watch this.
Jolene, welcome to SharePoint Conference.
Thank you.
Is this your first SharePoint Conference?
No, it's my third.
Third, so it gets better, right?
It gets better
just
every
the
time.
passion.
Yeah.
So tell us who you are, what you do, but more importantly, tell us about SharePoint Olympics. That was pretty cool that you shared.
Well, I'm a network administrator for Douglas County PUD, just a little electric utility. We wanted to get people involved with SharePoint and learning all the new features. So what we did is we did a SharePoint.
This is 2010, right?
Yes, this is 2010. We did a SharePoint Olympics. Based on the Summer Olympics, we did a short little 20-minute training once a week. We gave them a little task. We said, hey, go out and do this task, and when you do, we're going to give you a gold medal if you complete it. So we started with those little tasks, just stupid little things. What do you do for a blue monkey? You cheer him up, but they had to go use the search tools in order to find that. They had to post an announcement. They had to put their birthday on a calendar. They had to do all those things with SharePoint so that we could teach them the tools. Each time they did that, they got a gold medal. Hey, although everybody said, hey, go do your project because you got to get a gold medal.
So it's each team is a department.
Each team was a department, and so each department wanted to be the top gold medalist for the week. And so they'd say, hey, go get your gold medal. You haven't done it. So we got even those guys in the little corner that weren't going to go to training, that didn't want to learn it. And we did that. So then each week we did that. We had little candies that went to different events. We had little screenshots of different Olympic events, and we tied it all together. At the end, we had a big medal ceremony. Even got the mechanics, they built the little logos. It was just great. Everybody got involved. And in the process, everybody learned all these tools for SharePoint. They learned all the fun stuff, but they learned how to use the product. So when they needed to use it for business, they had the tools already there.
So is that the goal or the result that you were expecting?
That was what we were hoping for. We didn't really know how it would go. We didn't think the users would buy into it quite as much as they did. We didn't know there was going to be the camaraderie. We kind of got departments even tighter because they started working with each other.
Right.
And so
there's
that's where
smack talk, right?
Yeah, that's where we were surprised a little bit, but it was so fantastic to see how everybody bought into it too.
Did it work?
So it worked excellent. At the end, we just did root beer floats. No big deal. Everybody had a root beer float at the end. But it was great because everybody said, oh, I got the most gold medals of the year, of the, the product, and it worked out great. And then when they went to go do their products now and business sense, they went, I already know how to search. Oh, wait a minute, I can post an announcement.
I can create a list, Right.
They knew how to do it. But they had fun doing it in the same time, so they didn't have to, it didn't feel like work.
Did you get any validation after they came back? I know what you did, kind of thing?
We did from management. Management came down and said, wow, that was a really good thing because we saw you put that together. And see, because we're a public utility, we didn't have any money.
Sure.
So we don't have money to just give out free things.
Or training to everybody.
Right. And I get to be the trainer. And so we also didn't have money for prizes. So that became the gold medals. And so it was all a kind of a fictitious prize. But competition is a huge added reseller for your teams. Your teams want to be the best. You know, even it's just a little kid in you to say, I can get a gold medal.
But that's so powerful, because not only did people learn about SharePoint, like you said, it's team building exercise.
Oh, totally.
You didn't have to go to a nice resort to do team building.
No, not at all. And we geared each week to an Olympic event. So this week might have been, I don't know, high dive, you know,
right.
They gave that, and we did little blurts like that. And we kind of geared each event to each task. So they learned 10 new tasks, 10 weeks, 20 minutes were the sessions. They were short, quick, and as somebody said earlier in a session today, it was just enough when they needed it. So they weren't tied up for an hour-long session where they went, this is really boring, I can't stand this. It was 20 minutes, easy, in, out, do the task, get my gold medal, and my team is winning.
Awesome. Wonderful idea.
Yeah,
thank you for sharing that, Jolene.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thanks. I will.
Bye.
Bye.
That's a great story. You see? You want it to be sustainable. The desired results are 3 things you want when you want adoption, when you want change. You want to drive excitement. I was with another organization recently. I went in, same situation. Docs, we got SharePoint, now what? I was there mediating between IT and the business, large organization. IT was like, well, we build all this training for you. We've got contributor training, we got power user training. And then the VP said, stop, I don't know what that means. Contributor, power user? What's that? That doesn't get the business excited. Making people play games, that gets people excited. I had you tweet before my session started. That got you excited. Because, ooh, email has to win. How do you facilitate change? Meaning once people are excited, how do you get them thinking, wait a second, I did this game of searching, but I could actually search for my work stuff as well. I'll be. But the key part is once they're excited, once now they're changing within themselves, doing better things, you have to help them, assist them. So every implementation, you have to have a structure, number one, that people can help themselves. Does your SharePoint implementation have like a self-service FAQ? They can look up little videos or little how-tos, right? I highly recommend the resource from Microsoft called IUSharePoint.com. Awesome, awesome end-user tools. Another resource is called Productivity Hub. Productivity Hub is essentially a site collection you deploy in your SharePoint environment. It has all the training videos, PowerPoints, Word documents, not only for SharePoint, but all the Office products. It's called Productivity Hub. I could go on and on, but you got to help themselves, because sending them to a one-time training, they won't become experts when they come back. They won't start using it when they come back. So how do you put that in place, right? You have to put that in place. So here's what I recommend for everyone. When you want to have sustainable adoption, you have to take a phased approach. The first phase is you have to drive awareness amongst your champions. So your first phase would be a low-risk approach. You identify who the potential champions are, Sally, HR, Jay, right? And then you roll out some program for them, meaning you show them the power of SharePoint, get them to use it, get them excited, have them facilitate change into the things they do, and you provide resources for them. It's kind of like the train the trainer concept. You want to immerse them in the power of this platform. Once they're there, right, you want to expand this subset to a bigger group. So typically, the first group, you have 3 or 4 influential people. If you're a large organization, the second phase, you want to get bigger buy-in. So maybe everybody in HR, everybody in project management, get them excited, do a whole campaign around SharePoint for project management. And then you take on the whole organization for the third phase. It's called enterprise engagement, where now you have a full-blown campaign on how you're going to roll out sustainable adoption for the organization. I mean, we don't have time for me to tell you step by step how you do that. I have resources around that. I'll send it to you. And then you put a timeline around this. What does this look like? This initiative is going to happen in the next 18 months. And what that means, once you have a timeline, once you're intentional about it, budget should be earmarked for it. The irony of all this is we call SharePoint a platform, a collaboration platform, a social platform, whatever you want to call it, a business platform, but we don't treat it as a platform. Who has SAP in your company? Yeah, that's a platform. It's ERP, docs. So at the end of the fiscal year, in your budgeting cycle, there's always a bucket for SAP. Licenses, support, training, consulting. Y'all with me? In a lot of organizations, there's no bucket for SharePoint, the business platform. There's a bucket for Microsoft stuff, and then SharePoint is a line item. Isn't that ironic? We're willing to spend $2 million to keep up our SAP stuff every year, and we're kicking and screaming to run a full campaign to take advantage of this platform because we see the value in it. Is that helpful? Again, you have to be intentional. This is a photo taken by Associated Press in 1994, I believe. This is the Philippine Dragon Boat rowing team. And I was part of that team when I was still in the Philippines. Anybody familiar with this sport? It's a big canoe, a lot of people. This picture was taken as in the World Olympics in Hong Kong, and I'm the guy standing in the back. And I was cheering because I thought we won first. After that picture was taken, I learned we won second because China won half of a second ahead of us. Now, what's my point here? Training and being part of this team was freaking hard. We trained for 6 months, every morning, Monday to Friday, 4 a.m., we were in Manila Bay, doing running, calisthenics, exercise. We get on the water, rain or shine, typhoon or not. I remember one time I thought I was going to die. There's a typhoon's kind of like, is it hurricane here? Or it's kind of like waves and all that. We're still training, and the boat capsized. The Coast Guard had to come and get us. Now, what's my point here, right? You have to be intentional if you want to drive change. When we got started, we were a ragtag of guys. In fact, when we got started, these ragtag of guys just wanted to jump in the water and start rowing. I wanted to row. I never wanted to be the steers person. The reason I'm the steers person because I'm the lightest guy in the team. But it made me feel good because my coach said, your job is very important. While everybody's rowing, you got to keep it straight. Because just an inch off may mean 2 seconds. Y'all with me? But then even if I keep it straight, if the right side didn't row enough, we'll go in circles. If the left side didn't row enough, we'll go on the left side. And we had to be in sync. And our training wasn't, let's start rowing a mile. No. It was a journey, baby step. We just started running. I remember our first month, we didn't go to the water. We just did all these running. I was mad. I thought I was in the country's Dragon Boat rowing team, and for a month we were all running. So they want to build us up. The way you want to drive change can never be overnight. And if you're disappointed because I said that, tough luck, buddy. You suck. 5 steps to drive culture change. If you think you can keep doing on what you're doing and expect change, that's not going to happen. To drive change, you have to take this different step. SharePoint, being here for 11 years, it's too long as a file share. The social revolution expects more from SharePoint, and I expect more from you. Are you guys ready to lead this revolution? Raise your hand if you're ready. Okay, keep him up. Keep him up. If you're ready to raise this revolution, you got to take a different step. Stand up. Stand up with me. I'm going to teach you how to do this. Stand up. All right. Right hand over left hand. Okay. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Okay, let's practice again. We'll do it in the chorus, okay? Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. All right, you ready? You see, to drive change, you gotta be brave. To drive change, you gotta take a different step. To drive change, you gotta do it together. It can't just be IT dancing the dance. IT and business has to do it. Do you agree? Do you agree? Hey! All right, so let's do this, all right? Okay, come on. We're gonna lead the social revolution. You gotta be with me. Let's do this. Social SharePoint style.
Oppan Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style. Oppan Gangnam Style.
Let's give everybody a round of applause.
Gangnam Style.
Was that fun or what? Questions? I know we have a few minutes. Any questions? All right, so if you need to go, leave your cards or if you fill out something, put it in the back. I promise you I'll send all this stuff, and let's keep in touch. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and again, thank you for coming.